Hi guys, happy new year and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm taking a step back in time and I'm going to be brewing what I said I'd never be brewing again, which is a liquid malt extract tin. Now, my mum had bought this for me obviously and forgot to give it me, and it was in the back of her wardrobe. It's out of date by a couple of months. So best before end the 5th 2022. So yeah, over 6 months old. I've done one that's out of date before or past its best before and it was perfectly fine. So instead of just wasting it, we're going to do this final liquid malt extract, and you can see that happening if you haven't already seen it. This is what I used to do. So there's been some prep done for this so far. We've boiled hops in a pan. 2 lots of hops, 1 lot for 20 minutes and the same hops, same amount for another 10 minutes. So one's got 20, one's got 10. And it just gives you different layers of hoppiness and stuff like that. Then we added cold water to the mix to chill it, to stop it extracting. If I'd have thought about it, I probably should have added another load in at that point and then left it there, but I've already separated it and put it into the freezer now. We're going to be messing with this as I always do with kits like that. I've got some medium spray malt, got 500 grams of spray malt. I've put the yeast that it came with in the fridge because I don't want to use that as it is out of date itself. And we're going to be using today Mangrove Jack's Kvike yeast, or Kvik, however it's pronounced. This is M12, a range of styles from Norwegian farmhouse ales to pale ales and IPAs. Well, this is a Scottish ale called Winter Warmer. It doesn't really give a great deal of, a detail on the tin as to what it is, but it's just a Scottish ale. That's all you need to know, really. We've got some brewing sugar to put in. We've got a tin of extract. The tolerance for this is around 12%, I believe. That's what I found out on the line. So what we're going to do now is we're going to painstakingly try and add this hoppy water. Make sure that the tap's off or it's going to go everywhere. Everything's sterilized. We've got everything ready to rock. Now all we need to do is get this hot water into there, and this just catches the hop fragments. We don't want that floating around in there. It just makes it more difficult to bottle later on. So let's get it on. I'm going to tip it in and I'm going to speed it up. So we'll be using that water that you just saw going in there. Well, we'll be using the water that didn't spill on the side. It's so difficult because the pan was really full. But yeah, just clear up as you go if you can. That's going to be our start water. That's going to be the heated water that we're going to use to blend in the liquid malt extract. So this has been sat in some hot water for a period of time, and we're just going to open it up now as best we can because it's got a bit of a dent on it. Would the bottom be any easier? Can you open them at the bottom as well? Surely you can. Yeah, they look the same to me. We're going to give it a go. See what happens. There we go, we're in. Which dodges that dented bit, which would make it rather difficult. So you want to catch that lid, like so. And heating it up, it just makes it that little bit easier to work with. Now, we're going to lose that little bit that's on there, but not too bothered about that. And I did forget to boil the kettle, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, so boil the kettle, so you've got some water to swizzle this out with. It's going to come gushing out because it's nice and warm, but it's really dark, this one. In fact, I probably could have got away with dark spray malt. Would have given it a bit of a darker colour. But that whole 150 kg tin goes in to your hoppy water. You don't have to put in hoppy water. You don't even need to add hops. It's just, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to beers, and or so I've been told anyway. Why does that look wonky? Because it was wonky, that's why. And I just like the hoppier flavours. These tins are okay if you like standard ales. That's, you know, you're going to be well happy with it if you like standard ales. I drink more craft than anything else, so I tend to prefer the more hoppy side of things, which is why I've always messed with the kits. I used to do the Mangrove Jacks kits. I started on these ones that you can pick these up in Wilko's if you're in the UK. If you're not in the UK, you can go anywhere and pick up a tin like this. Any homebrew shop will have something like this. And if they don't, then they're not a very good homebrew shop. Because all that is a liquid malt extract. What they do is they extract the malt the same way that they would if you were creating your wort to begin with. And yes, now I say wort instead of wort because I googled it, and there is like a cringe thing that goes on in the homebrew world when people say wort instead of wort. But yeah, say what you see. Still like my wort, whatever thing. But hey, so that's going to get mixed in. Now we're going to add this little bit of hot water. We don't want to add too much, simply because that's already at 30 degrees and we need this to finish at about 20 to 22 degrees to be able to actually pitch the yeast. So, caution whilst using hot water and metal containers. It will burn you. Just gently swizzle it around as best you can, and we'll get that last bit out. Now there's not a lot left, but it's there, so we don't really want to waste it. Just very carefully, and then in it goes. As you can see, quite a bit came out. We've cleared most of it out. There's minimal left. That can go in the sin bin there. Trusty oven gloves. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix in that liquid malt extract to make sure that it's completely dissolved. Because as you can see at the moment, on the end of the spoon, it's not fully dissolved in yet, but the hot water helps that, you see, which is why we add hot water to begin with. You don't have to use hot water. You can use cold water, but it will just take longer. The heat doesn't do any damage to it at all because we're not actually creating alcohol yet. All it does is helps it dissolve and fills the room with a nice scent of malt extract. And we're going to dilute this, right? So this is a 40 pint kit. From experience, if you do 40 pints with a standard kit, you're just going to get something that's a bit meh, a bit watery. It's going to taste okay, but it's going to be, yeah, rather watery. Need some skizzers. And it's not going to have a great deal of body. So we had spray malt, which is a dried version of the sugary malts that you extract from boiling grain. Now this can make a bit of a mess, so we've got to be very careful. And we're always stirring while we're putting this in, otherwise it causes like little chunks and then they take a while to actually get themselves dissolved in. So we're constantly stirring while this is going in. This is 500 grams. I'm using medium. This beer looks quite dark, so you could get away with dark if you wanted a more of a, I think it has more of a roasted note to it. But constantly stirring as that goes in. And you can pick all these ingredients, the hops you can get off, not eBay, you can get them off eBay actually, but I got them off Amazon, same as this spray malt, because it just comes quicker. Pay a bit more, yeah, but it comes quicker. Right, let's make sure we've got all of that, we don't want to waste that, because that is the good stuff. It's not only adding sugars, but it's adding flavour as well. If you paid for it, you want it. Woo. Stay there. So then we're going to mix that in really, really thoroughly. Once we've seen all that dissolved, we're then going to add some brewing sugar. As I was saying, I'm not going to do the full amount of water that this requires, or that it's supposed to have. You can have as much water or as little water as you want, but it depends on what yeast you're using. Now remember, I'm not using the yeast that came with it. The yeast that came with it would probably have a 5 to 6% maximum tolerance of alcohol, and then the yeast would just die. The one we're using is supposedly, according to the internet, 12% maximum. Now, I've learned from brewing and following somebody called City Steady on YouTube that yeast doesn't know what its tolerance is. It just keeps going until it can't go anymore. So sometimes it might be a little bit less, sometimes it might be a little bit more. So, in with the brewing sugar. Now this is dextrose, which is just refined sugar, basically, made more simple, and it's a lot finer than normal sugar. I will try and show you, but I don't know if you can see it. It's just a lot more powdery. You'll see it as it comes out. Imagine caster sugar, but finer than caster sugar. And we're just going to mix that in as well. All the time stirring. So that's 500 grams of brewing sugar and 500 grams of spray malt. We keep that tucked because they're useful. We're just going to make sure it's nice and mixed in. Then we're going to add the water, which is back to the point. I'm not using the amount of water. I will get this point out. I'm not using the amount of water that it says to use because I don't want that much of it. Oh, someone's at the door. Hey, postman, you don't see them very often anymore. They're on strike at the moment here. Righto, so I think we're good. We're going to mix it again in a while. So what we need to do now is I'm going for 16 litres, which is, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 litres less than what it is. Now what this will do, it will give us a more concentrated flavour and a higher ABV if the yeast can handle all of it. We're going to add the amount of water that I've said I want, which is the 16 litres. Then we're going to take a hydrometer reading, if the temperature is okay to do so. And we're going to see what the possible ABV would be from that, and as to whether the yeast will be able to take on all the sugars. If not, what will happen is the yeast will die and all of that sugar will be remaining in there, and you'll just have a horrible sweet drink that you've just got to kind of get through, even though you don't want to. Some of the sugars are meant to stay behind, which gives it that nice sugary note sometimes in stouts, brown ales and things like that. So some of it is unfermentable, so some of that is okay for it to stay behind. And also the bits that do stay behind is what helps you carbonate it over time. Anyway, it's a lot of information to take in, but I'm just trying to say all the things that I've said before in this video, so you don't need to go back and watch the ancient ones of me pissing about and doing everything really, really inefficiently. So let's get some bloody water. Right, there we go, we've got 16 litres of water. Oh, that's spray my back over it. Yeah, get that out of the way. So now we're going to just mix it in, make sure it's all nicely mixed, evenly spread as such, and any of those extra sugars that we maybe missed will now be dissolving as we go. We're also beating air into this. As you can see, when I was pouring the water in, I was pouring it in from quite high up, simply because it adds oxygen to the wort. Oh, I nearly did it then. It adds oxygen to the wort, which is what this liqueur in here is now. And oxygen is what we need for the yeast to be healthy enough to start. So, what we're going to do now, we're going to do something called a hydrometer reading. And what a hydrometer reading is, it's a device that allows us to find out how much fermentable sugars are in there, or how much sugars in general are in there. And then it can give us use an equation, which I don't use. I just use an app because I can't be arsed with that. And it tells you what your possible ABV will be, how much alcohol you stand to get. Now, with a quick calculation, we'll be able to know if we'll be able to ferment it at the density that we've got now. So this measures how dense a liquid is. The more sugar you have in something, the more dense it becomes, and it even works with salt. It was an experiment I did with my lad. Always turns round. No, we've got 42.46. So let's make a quick note of that now. And while we make that note, on the pad of paper that I don't have to hand, oh, it's here actually. Hey, we need to start this as a new recipe for disaster. So let's just make a quick note on the back of here. We said it was 1.046, which isn't bad. It is not bad at all. I'm going to go quickly check how much alcohol that stands to give us to determine whether the yeast will be able to handle it, and to find out how much alcohol we'll have at the end. Okay, so online, having a look at this, that, the other. As it stands, this will come out at 4.8%. If it fermented out to about 1.009, which is about what you'd expect from an ale of this kind, I suppose. Stouts sometimes a little bit more, but most of mine tend to go a little bit lower than what I expected them to go. So 4.8 is a little bit low for the expectation that I had from it, because I was decreasing the amount of water to make it stronger. I was looking for about 8%. So I'm going to add more brewing sugar, which I've got right here from Brew Day Supplies, who I get my all grain kits from. So I'm actually going to weigh out some, right? Because I don't want to overshoot the 8% mark. If I can get it a little bit under, I think 7.5, that'd be my yes, thank you very much, sir. So I'm going to get some scales and we're going to weigh out possibly 250 grams. See what that does, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Okay, so we're finally back after all that kerfuffle. We've got the start gravity now of 1.062, which is quite high up there, to be fair, which is very nice. I've added 500 grams of spray malt, 1.25 kilograms of dextrose, which is brewing sugar, and that's given us, it'll give us an ABV of, I think it was 6.8 or 6.9%. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I'll put it up here or there or wherever I can fit the damn thing. So now we're going to check the temperature. Temperature's good. Make a note of the start gravity, which was 62. Thank you to the dog for coming in and just making a slobbering noise in the background as always. Now we pitch the yeast. The Kvike yeast can be done up to, I think it's like 38 degrees or something. It's crazy. Yeah. Cheers, dog. Making you a lovely slobbering noise. So we pitch the yeast. Spread it out as even as possible. We've already banged loads of air into this, oxygen. So now in the yeast goes, and then we're going to stir this to make sure it's all wet. Now this packet of yeast could do 32 litres, sorry 23 litres, which is 4 gallons? No, 3 gallons. No, it is 4 gallons, isn't it? Got all that in there. We'll keep that because we need to make a note of what yeast we did use. And then we're just going to mix that in. Making sure it all gets a bit of moisture on it. Like so. Ooh. Just like that. Try and get that last bit of yeast off there. Sorted. That can go in the pan. Now, I haven't used these buckets for a long time. What I do need to do is create a barrier using petroleum jelly. But I don't know where it is, so I'll be back shortly and I'll go find some. So, as I was saying, I haven't used these for a while, so I'm going to create a protective barrier around this lip here, so that when this is seated, it's got a better, what's the word? Better protection from the outside. No air is going to be getting in because we don't want that. So I'm going to speed this up because it's boring. So we've done that, we've laid it up. That creates an extra layer of protection for this because we do not want any oxygen to get in there. We don't want no dust, no dog hair, no nothing. We want it to be 100% sanitary, and that is the only way we're actually going to complete this fermentation. Now, I may be cursing myself, but I've never had one fail yet. Oh, I seem to have misplaced all of the caps for this. I did have a makeshift one somewhere, so we'll pretend there's a cap on there so that no bugs can get into the liquid. That's got sanitizing water in. We're going to close this down actually, making sure it's nicely snug all the way around, and then we're going to add the airlock, which we've also, you may have seen me adding Vaseline to, and all it does is it just creates that extra layer of protection, which is perfect. Now, why won't that go in there? Is it the wrong size? I'll be back. It's a Scottish style ale, as it says on here. Winter warmer is a... I can't even read most of it because it's all been worn away and stuff, but it was a Scottish ale anyway. It was called Winter Warmer, but I've changed it by adding more sugar than I should have done, and adding also 500 grams of spray malt, including the 50 grams of Columbus in 2 lots of 25 hops. One for 20 minutes, one for 10 minutes. And there you go, Scottish heavy. We'll see what happens. I'll give it 7 days and then I'll take a hydrometer reading and see whether we can add some dry hops. I don't think I'm going to bother buying the extra hops, the Galaxy, because there's just no point really. You're only going to be dry hopping with it, so I'll just dry hop with the 50 grams that I've got left. Keep the cost down, which is a great thing. And all the sugar that we've added has actually taken it past the 16.5 litres, so we've actually gained half a litre. So that'll help when we come to bottle, and it's lost a bit at the bottom there through the sediments and that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. A very happy fermentation.